On my engagement day, my uncle posted a picture tagging the whole family on a beach trip. Caption, "Back together at last." My mom's text earlier had said, "We're not feeling up to a party." I said nothing. That night, I canceled the mortgage autopay. 6 days later, my dad stormed up my driveway. I walked outside and declared, "I don't really have a family anymore. Not the one I was born into." Anyway, my name's Joseph. I grew up in northern Georgia, just outside Marietta, middle-class suburb, cul-de-sacs, cookouts, all that. I used to think we were close. My mom used to bake cookies for my teachers. My dad taught me how to mow a lawn at 10, like it was some sacred ritual. My sister and I used to build forts out of couch cushions. It all felt like a normal family, maybe even a good one. But I see it differently now. They didn't all turn on me at once. It happened slowly in subtle ways. When I moved in with Kayla, my fiancée, 2 years ago, they acted like I was betraying them. My mom called it brushing things. My dad told me I was making a mistake. My sister said I was selfish, that I only thought about myself. But still, I thought they'd come around. Then came the engagement. Kayla's parents were thrilled. They took over the planning for the engagement party and told me not to worry about a thing. We rented out this beautiful hall in Roswell. Live music, full bar, played to dinner, the whole deal. Everyone got invites months in advance. My family all RSVP'd. My mom even messaged Kayla's mom saying how excited she was. Then the morning of the party, I got a text. "We're not feeling up to a party today. Hope it's lovely." I stared at it for a full minute. No one else followed up. No call from my dad. No text from my sister. I remember telling Kayla maybe something happened. A health scare, a car issue, something legit. I told her not to worry. The party went on. Kayla looked stunning. Her parents made a toast that left half the room misty-eyed. People were laughing, eating, celebrating. And then my phone buzzed again. It was Facebook. My uncle had tagged my entire family in a photo. My mom, my dad, my sister, even 2 of my cousins, all of them graining under a beach umbrella, drinks in hand, a cheesy stock filter over the photo. The caption hit me harder than any insult they could have thrown. Finally together again. They'd gone on vacation together. During my engagement party, I didn't say anything. Not to them, not even to Kayla at first. I just sat in my car after the party and stared at the dashboard. That night, I logged into my bank and canceled the mortgage autopay. The house was still in my name. The payments had been going to help them. I didn't tell them. I just cut it off. 6 days later, I saw my dad's truck pull into my driveway. He didn't park. He rolled up like he was still in charge of something. I met him outside before he could knock. I didn't yell. I didn't ask questions. I just told him, "You're not entitled to me anymore." He stood there blinking like he was waiting for the punchline, but there wasn't one. That was the moment everything cracked. And it didn't stop there. I figured I'd hear from someone eventually. I just didn't think it would be that fast. It started with my sister. She texted me a few long messages the next morning. Nothing too surprising at first. Just her usual way of talking when she thinks she's got the moral high ground. A lot of fake concern layered with quiet jabs. She said the beach trip had been on the calendar for months, that I should have known we weren't coming, and that I was being childish for reacting the way I did. She even ended one of the texts with, "You know how dad gets when he's under stress." Like that excused everything. I didn't respond. Not to her, not to my mom, not to the half-hearted. "Hope everything's okay." Email I got from my aunt 2 days later. I let the silence sit. I let it grow. It was the only honest response I had. But Kayla's parents weren't wired for silence. They invited me over the next evening. When I walked in, it felt weirdly formal. Gary and Denise were already sitting at the dining table. Denise had a manila folder in front of her, and Gary had 2 glasses of iced tea. I thought maybe it was going to be some gentle conversation about moving past it, some awkward parental suggestion that I extend an olive branch, or whatever. I sat down. Gary pushed one of the teas toward me. Then Denise opened the folder and laid out a handful of printed photos on the table. They were from the engagement party, but not the ones we posted. These were raw, unfiltered faces in the crowd. Guests whispering to each other. A few staring awkwardly at the reserved signs on the empty chairs we put out for my family. One of Kayla's college friends visibly mouthing the words, "Where are they?" Denise looked at me and said, "That wasn't just your name." They embarrassed. I looked at Gary, thinking he'd be more neutral. He wasn't. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. They made a statement by not showing up. "So now it's our turn. The next morning, Denise called my mom directly. She didn't tell me exactly what was said, but I gathered the tone from how quickly things escalated. Denise doesn't raise her voice, but she also doesn't leave room for counter-arguments. She told my mother I wasn't her little helper anymore, that I wasn't a backup husband for when Dad didn't want to deal with things. She told her I didn't owe them anything, not money, not favors, not time. And then she told her the mortgage would stay unpaid. My mom hung up without saying goodbye. But that wasn't the end of it. 3 days later, Gary and Denise pulled into our driveway with something big on a trailer. I was out front watering the shrubs. Kayla had just gotten home from a meeting. We both turned at the sound of the truck backing in. That's when I saw it. A brand new Cadillac XT6. Midnight blue. Sticker still on the side window. A big red bow across the hood like something out of a commercial. Denise stepped out of the truck, waved like it was any other Sunday. Gary unhooked the trailer and said, "You'll need something decent to drive to the wedding venue walkthroughs." I just stood there. I didn't take the keys right away when he offered them. It wasn't about the car itself. It was about what the car represented: loyalty, presence, choosing your people. Later that night, Kayla's mom said something I couldn't shake. "You don't have to beg anyone to treat you like you matter. Not when you already do." I wish I could say the gesture was private, but it wasn't. We live in a quiet neighborhood, and the Cadillac sat in the driveway like a trophy. My mom saw it before I even said a word. I know because 2 days later, my sister showed up at the pharmacy where I work. No greeting, no warning. She just stormed up to the counter, red-faced, and asked, "So you're fine taking handouts from Kayla's parents now?" I looked at her and said, "Handouts usually come with strings. All they've ever asked is that I be happy." She just stared, searching for a comeback, but I wasn't interested. I told her, "You made your choice. Now live with it." She hesitated a moment too long, then walked out. That was the first time I felt the shift. Not just anger, I was done. And I wasn't alone, because Denise and Gary were only getting started. The silence from my parents wasn't silence. It was intentional. No calls, no texts, no snide Facebook comments. My mom even went off social media for about a week. Then she came back with a photo of a seafood platter and the keys captioned, "Peace and quiet is the best medicine." The message was clear. They weren't ignoring me. They were pretending none of it had happened. Meanwhile, Kayla's parents did the opposite. The Cadillac hadn't even cooled off before Gary was talking about our future. One morning, he sat me down with a thick folder. "You and Kayla shouldn't start married life in debt. You've worked too hard. You deserve more than what they gave you." Inside was a full down payment for a house. No strings, not a loan. A gift. Kayla cried when I told her. I didn't. I couldn't. My system was out of emotional bandwidth. I just kept remembering how I used to send my parents $600 a month to cover bills. How I paid their property taxes 3 years in a row. How I co-signed the car my sister wrecked last summer. And all of that was answered with a beach photo and umbrella drinks to S.O. when Gary and Denise offered the down payment. I didn't feel guilty. I felt rescued from something I hadn't realized was drowning me. Still, I knew taking it would set things off. And sure enough, 2 weeks after we signed the paperwork, my parents showed up together. No warning. They parked across the street and walked up like everything was fine. Kayla opened the door, saw them, and quietly stepped aside. My dad started right in, asking what this house was, how I afforded it, who was really behind it. He didn't ask like he wanted to understand. He asked like he was trying to catch me in a lie. My mom took another angle, saying they were only concerned and wanted to be sure we weren't being taken advantage of. I looked at both of them and asked one question. When was the last time either of you did something for me without expecting something back? Silence. I asked again. Still nothing. So I said, Kayla's parents show up. That's the difference. Then I turned and closed the door. That night, my mom posted a long, vague status about losing children to controlling families and how some people forget where they came from. My sister liked it. My uncle added a Bible verse. I didn't respond. I just kept moving forward. That's when Denise and Gary drew their own line. They sat us down and told us what we weren't expecting. They were setting up a joint trust for me and Kayla. Not for them, for us. To start our life, to build something stable, something ours. And they said it plainly. You two are our family now. We're all in. It felt good. But it also hit something deeper. The part of me that still hoped my own parents might show up one day, even though they'd proven they wouldn't. Because this wasn't just generosity anymore. It was war, and it wasn't finished that I thought maybe they'd stop. After the beach posts, the confrontation, the car, the trust, I figured they'd back off, maybe go back to pretending I didn't exist. But that's not how my parents work. Their silence never meant surrender. It meant planning. The letter showed up 3 days after the trust paperwork was finalized. A real envelope, handwritten address, no return label. Just Joseph in my mom's careful cursive, the same handwriting she used for wedding invitations when she wanted to look composed. I read it in the garage, sitting on an overturned paint bucket under a flickering bulb. It wasn't an apology, not even close. It was polite, rehearsed, almost scripted. She wrote that there had been misunderstandings lately and that they wanted to reconnect, maybe have an honest talk over lunch. She made it sound like we'd simply missed each other's schedules. Then came the line I had to read twice. We've been hearing things about this new trust. We just want to be sure everything you're doing is in your best interest. Don't let people buy your loyalty. You still have a real family. Buy my loyalty. Like respect and love were just currency. Like I'd run back to the people who couldn't even show up for a party in my honor that I didn't mention the letter to Kayla. I already knew her reaction. Instead, I folded it up and shoved it into the drawer where I keep old receipts and expired coupons. But Denise found out anyway. Not from me, from my dad. He called her directly, said he was worried I was being misled. My parents said Kayla and I were young and needed to remember that real family doesn't come with conditions. Coming from them, it was almost comedy. Denise took that call, her voice sharp through the glass door. If you want him back, try being worth coming back to. A few days later, another letter arrived, this time from a lawyer. My parents were suing me for family loans, the down payment I'd given them, the car I co-signed, even kitchen appliances I'd ordered. They turned my support into debt. Kayla just said, "Good. Let them try." Gary called his lawyer, and within 2 days, we filed a counterclaim for reimbursements and damages. I thought that would end it, but then they RSVP'd to the wedding. We kept it small, 62 guests, every seat earned except theirs. I let them come, not to reconcile, but to sit in the back and feel how far they'd drifted. They showed up late, dressed like mourners, sat in silence, and disappeared before the cake. The server handed me an envelope they'd left behind. Inside was a note and a check for $28,000. Every dollar I'd ever given them. No apology, just returning what you think we owe you. We won't be contacting you again. It didn't feel like freedom. It felt like a divorce. Our whole history reduced to a balance sheet. I cashed it anyway, not out of anger, but because it was the only honest thing they'd ever done, and then it was over. No calls, no messages, no holiday texts. Just silence. It should have felt like losing, but with Kayla, her parents, and our new life, I realized it was healing. Sometimes it looks like a door slamming, and you finally choosing not to open it again. Kayla and I spent the holidays with her parents in Colorado, snowed in, making soup, watching old movies. It was peaceful mostly, but there was an ache I hadn't expected. Not for my parents, but for the idea of them. The version where families fight and forgive, not fight and file lawsuits. The first year after cutting someone off is strange. I kept catching myself reaching for a connection that wasn't there anymore. I almost called my mom for a recipe 3 times in January. Part of me still expected her to break the silence. She didn't. Neither did my dad. What sealed it came on Memorial Day at Kayla's parents' lake house. After dinner, Denise handed me a small wrapped package. Inside was a key to the lake house. Gary explained they'd eventually put the deed in our names. I tried to protest, but Denise just said, "You already earned it, Joseph. You just had the wrong people measuring your worth." That night, I lay awake thinking about that key, the check, the letter I never answered. Silence was my reply. Weeks later, my sister mailed a box, 2 childhood trophies, an old photo, a worn hoodie. No note. Just their version of closure, and that was the end. No fight, no dramatic finale, just a cold quiet. Now I have a new family. Not perfect, but present, loyal, generous in ways that matter. I've learned you can grieve and still be grateful. And I've learned to stop mourning what I never really had.